I still remember the first night it all began. The glow of my laptop screen, the bitter taste of cheap coffee, and the sound of my fingers racing across the keyboard. It was 2 in the morning, and while most of the world was asleep, I was awake, chasing a dream that wouldn't let me rest. For as long as I could remember, I wanted to build something of my own, not just another job, not just another paycheck, but something that would last. Something that would carry my name, my effort, my story. That something was my startup. It wasn't much at first, just an idea scribbled across messy notebooks, sketches on napkins, and endless lines of code that looked more like gibberish than the foundation of a company. But in my head, I could already see it, an app that would change the way small businesses connected with their customers. And I wasn't alone. Or at least, I thought I single quotes. My best friend Ryan was there from the start. Ryan and I had been friends since college, the kind of friends who could finish each other's sentences, who shared inside jokes that no one else understood, who had gone through years of late-night study sessions and failed exams and wild adventures. So when I told him about my startup idea, he didn't hesitate for a second. "Man, this is genius," he said, his eyes lighting up. "You've got to build this, and I want in." I didn't think twice. If there was anyone I trusted, it was Ryan. We began working together every night after our day jobs, while others were out partying, binge-watching shows, or sleeping. We were hunched over screens, brainstorming features, debating designs, and dreaming about the future. I can still remember one specific night, the night that would stay with me forever. We were sitting in my cramped apartment, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and glowing monitors. It was 3 a.m., and we had just finished the first working prototype. Ryan leaned back in his chair, grinning like a kid who had just gotten away with something. "Dude," he said, "this is it. This is going to make us rich." I laughed, exhausted, but exhilarated, not just rich. This is going to help people. Small businesses struggle all the time. If this works the way we imagine, we could actually make a difference. Ryan smirked. "Yeah, sure, but let's not kid ourselves. If this takes off, we'll be set for life." I brushed it off at the time. After all, what was wrong with wanting success? What I didn't realize then was that Ryan's definition of success was very different from mine. Weeks turned into months. The app grew stronger, smarter, cleaner. We spent sleepless nights fixing bugs, polishing features, and designing an interface that was both simple and powerful. And slowly, we started catching attention. First, it was a few small businesses who agreed to test it out. Their feedback was incredible. They told us this app saved them hours of work, connected them to customers more easily, and gave them tools they never thought they could afford. Then word spread. A local startup incubator invited us to pitch our idea. It wasn't huge, but it was the first real recognition we'd ever gotten. For me, it was validation proof that my dream wasn't just a fantasy. For Ryan, it was something else. Something I wouldn't see until it was too late. The day of the pitch is still clear in my mind. I wore my only decent suit, a little too tight from months of living on takeout. And Ryan wore his usual casual button-down, confidence radiating from him. We stood before a small panel of investors. My heart pounded as I walked them through our slides, demoing the app, explaining the potential, painting the picture of what this could become. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then one of the investors leaned forward, tapped his pen on the table, and said the words I'd been waiting my entire life to hear. "This has potential." Ryan and I exchanged a look, pure adrenaline and excitement surging through us. The investors didn't write a check that day, but they told us to come back, to refine, to polish, to be ready. And for me, that was enough. But for Ryan, it wasn't. Looking back, I can pinpoint the exact moment things began to shift. It was subtle at first. Ryan stopped showing up as often. He started canceling late-night work sessions. He brushed off my calls, saying he was busy with something else. I figured maybe he was burned out. After all, we had been pushing ourselves for months without rest. I told myself not to worry. Until the night everything changed. I was at home, debugging a feature that had been giving me nightmares. When I got an email, at first I didn't understand it. It was a newsletter from a tech blog I followed. The subject line read, "Promising new startup gains traction in local market." Curious, I clicked, and my blood ran cold. The article described an app. My app, word for word. Feature for feature. Even the pitch I had written. But the name under it wasn't mine, it was Ryan's. The moment I saw Ryan's name in that article, It felt like the floor beneath me had collapsed. My stomach twisted, my chest tightened, and for a long moment, I couldn't even breathe. The words blurred in front of me as anger and disbelief fought for control inside me. I blinked once, twice, but the article didn't change. It was there in black and white, my dream, my idea, my months of work. Stolen, repackaged, and paraded under Ryan's name. I felt my hands shaking as I scrolled down. The journalist had quoted him too. This app, Ryan had said, was my vision. I've been working tirelessly on it, building something that will change how businesses interact with customers. My vision. Those two words cut deeper than any knife. That night, I couldn't sleep. My head spun with questions. Why would he do this? How could he do this? This was Ryan, my best friend. The guy who'd slept on my couch when he couldn't afford rent. The guy I had lent money to, defended in fights, trusted with everything, and now he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. By morning, the confusion had hardened into anger. I needed answers, so I called him. Ryan, I said as soon as he picked up, my voice trembling. What the hell is this? There was silence on the other end. Then, a casual laugh. Oh, you saw it. Of course I saw it. You stole everything. The idea, the pitch, the code. How could you? His tone shifted, colder, sharper. Relax, man. Don't act like you did this all by yourself. I was there too. I put in the hours. I earned this. I clenched my fist. Earned it. This was my idea. My prototype. My sleepless nights. You took it and claimed it as your own. Ryan sighed, as though I was the one being unreasonable. Look, business is business. You should know that by now. You've always been too idealistic. Talking about helping people, changing the world. That doesn't make money. I made a choice. And if you're smart, you'll stay out of my way. My heart sank. Stay out of your way. Ryan, we were supposed to be partners. He laughed again, crueler this time. Partners. No. I was always the one with charisma, the one investors liked. You're just the coder. Face it, you're nothing without me. Click. The call ended. And with it, the last shred of our friendship. The days that followed were a blur of rage and despair. Everywhere I turned, Ryan's name was there. He was giving interviews, attending events, pitching to bigger and bigger investors. And every time he opened his mouth, he stole more of my words, my ideas, my passion. I felt invisible. Like I had been erased from my own story. Friends started calling me. Hey, isn't this your app? Didn't you come up with this idea? What's going on? And I didn't know what to say. How could I explain that my best friend had stabbed me in the back and walked away with my life's work? At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, fury burning inside me. I thought about confronting him in public. I thought about suing. I thought about quitting entirely, leaving it all behind and starting over. But each time, one thought echoed, louder than the rest. He thinks I'm nothing without him. And that, I couldn't allow. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I was scrolling through social media when I saw it. A video of Ryan at a big investor conference. He was on stage, smiling like a celebrity, presenting the app to a cheering audience, and then, he said something that made my blood boil. This product is the result of my years of vision and innovation. I built this from scratch, with nothing but determination and hard work. My hands tightened into fists. That was it. That was the moment I decided. If Ryan wanted a war, he was going to get one. But I knew I couldn't just lash out. I had no money for lawyers. No influence. No platform. If I attacked him head-on, I'd lose. I needed a plan. And the plan started with a single truth. Ryan didn't know everything. Yes, he had stolen the pitch deck. Yes, he had stolen the early code. But he didn't understand the system the way I did. He didn't know its flaws, its weaknesses. And most importantly, he didn't know about the one feature I hadn't told him about, a feature that could make or break the entire product. So I started working again. While Ryan was busy chasing fame, I was in the shadows, rebuilding the app from the ground up. This time, smarter, faster, better. I refined the code, added new tools, and fixed the bugs that I knew would cripple Ryan's version. Every night, I sat alone in my tiny apartment, headphones in, heart racing, driven by one burning thought. I will take back what's mine. But revenge isn't just about planning, it's about patience. And so, I waited, one night. As I scrolled through Ryan's latest press coverage, I noticed something. Buried in the comments of a glowing article, a small business owner complained. The app is buggy, it keeps crashing. My heart skipped a beat, then another comment. It doesn't work like they promised. And another. Customer support is terrible. Is this a scam? A slow smile spread across my face. Ryan's empire was starting to crack. The first time I saw a negative review of Ryan's app, it felt like a spark in the darkness. The second time, it was a flame. And by the 10th, it was a wildfire. What had once been hailed as the next big thing was starting to crumble. Investors, who had once sung Ryan's praises, were growing cautious. Early adopters were frustrated. The press, which had crowned him the face of innovation, began asking uncomfortable questions, and all the while, I was waiting, because I knew this was only the beginning. But I also knew better than to celebrate too soon. Ryan was arrogant, yes, but he wasn't stupid. If he realized how weak his product truly was, he might scramble to fix it. He might hire a better team, rebuild, and recover before I had the chance to strike. That's why I had to move carefully, quietly. And my first step was exposure. I reached out to the small businesses who had complained online. Not as myself, not yet. I created a new email, a new identity, and I wrote to them. I've seen you've had issues with Ryan's app. You're not alone. If you're looking for a better alternative, something that actually works, stay tuned. Most ignored me. At first, who wouldn't? But a few replied, desperate for help. They were losing customers because of Ryan's faulty software. Some were angry. Others were heartbroken because they had believed his promises. To them, I offered hope. Something better is coming, I said. Just wait. And with every message I sent, my resolve hardened. While Ryan was doing interviews in glossy magazines, I was sitting in coffee shops with struggling business owners, listening to their frustrations, their dreams, their needs. I took notes on everything. This thing crashes whenever we add more than 50 products. It doesn't let me track repeat customers. There's no support for small teams. It feels like it was made for big companies, not people like us. I listened. I learned. And then, I built. Weeks turned into months. And with every line of code I wrote, my version grew stronger, more stable, more intuitive. But revenge isn't just about building something better. It's about timing. I couldn't just release my app into the world without a plan. I needed to hit Ryan where it hurt most, in front of the investors who had once worshipped him. And then, fate handed me the perfect opportunity. One night, while scrolling through industry news, I saw the headline, Ryan Jacobs to unveil major update at Global Tech Expo. I stared at the article, a slow grin spreading across my face. The expo wasn't just another conference. It was the event of the year where the biggest players in tech came to show off their breakthroughs. Where journalists from around the world gathered, where investors made billion-dollar decisions in the span of a handshake. Ryan was planning to relaunch his app there, which meant I would too. The weeks leading up to the expo were some of the hardest of my life. I barely ate. I barely slept. My apartment was a disaster zone, littered with empty coffee cups, takeout containers, and endless sticky notes. My laptop was my lifeline, my weapon, my entire world. And through it all, one thought kept me going. This is my moment. He took everything from me. Now, I'm taking it back. The morning of the expo arrived. I remember standing outside the convention center, clutching my laptop bag, heart pounding in my chest. Banners hung from the walls, lights flashed from every corner, and thousands of people buzzed with excitement. Ryan was scheduled to present at 2 p.m. The hall was packed. Investors lining the front rows, cameras flashing. He walked on stage with his trademark grin, oozing confidence, as though he hadn't just spent the past few months drowning in complaints. I stood in the back, watching. He began his presentation, talking about innovation, about the future, about how his update would redefine customer engagement. But when he launched the demo, it failed. The app froze, then crashed. He tried again. Same result. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ryan's smile faltered. He wiped sweat from his forehead, muttering excuses about technical issues. But it was too late. The investors exchanged skeptical glances. The journalists leaned forward, smelling blood. And that was my cue? I stepped outside, opened my laptop, and pushed my app live. No flashy announcement. No grand speech. Just a quiet launch. Targeted emails to the very investors sitting inside. A press release sent to the journalists waiting for their next headline by the time Ryan stumbled off stage. Humiliated, his phone was buzzing with messages. But not the kind he wanted. because all around the expo, people were already talking about a new app. An app that looked familiar, but actually worked. An app with features Ryan's didn't have. My app. That night, I sat in a diner across the street, watching the chaos unfold on social media. Ryan's demo disaster has his company peaked. Investors I knew competitor after Jacob's failure. Game-changing alternative emerges at Expo. My inbox flooded with messages. Business owners who had once trusted Ryan now wanted to try my version. Investors who had brushed me aside were suddenly desperate to meet. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to breathe. Because this was just the beginning of his downfall. The night after the expo, I barely slept, not because I was worried, but because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Investors, journalists, small business owners, all of them wanted to talk to me. The same people who had once ignored my emails, brushed me aside, or told me my dream was too ambitious, were now begging for a meeting. Meanwhile, Ryan was trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. For years, he had lived off stolen ideas, fake charm, and empty promises. But one bad moment on stage, and the mask was slipping. And I wasn't done yet. The investor called 2 days later. I found myself sitting across from a panel of the very investors who had once funded Ryan. They looked nervous, desperate, even. "Your app," one of them said, "it's clean, stable, scalable. Everything Ryan's isn't." I smiled politely. Inside, I was burning with satisfaction. They offered me numbers. Big numbers. Numbers that would have made the old me cry with joy. But this time, I wasn't naive. I remembered how quickly they had abandoned me before. How they had handed my dream to Ryan like I didn't exist, so I looked them in the eye and said, "I'll think about it," and walked out. Ryan's desperation, the more my app grew, the more Ryan's crumbled. Users abandoned him in droves. Bad reviews flooded the App Store. Investors pulled out one by one, and then, Ryan did something I didn't expect. He called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Listen," his voice cracked through the line. "We can fix this. Together. Partner up with me. Your code, my connections." "We can," I laughed. Out loud. "You mean my code and my dream, the one you stole?" There was silence. Then, bitterness in his voice. "You'll never make it without me." I hung up, and that was the last time I ever heard his voice directly. The world turned into months. My app exploded in popularity. Small businesses loved it. Tech magazines called it the solution the industry has been waiting for. And Ryan. He disappeared from the spotlight. Articles speculated about lawsuits, bankruptcy, maybe even fraud. His social media went silent. Friends unfollowed him. His empire turned to dust. The man who once strutted around as if he owned the future was nothing more than a cautionary tale. The moment of peace one evening, months later, I was walking through the city. The same city where Ryan had stolen my dream, where I had once felt invisible. But now, things were different. I passed a coffee shop, and through the window, I saw a small business owner using my app, smiling, relaxed, helping a customer without stress. That was it. That was the real victory. Not the money, not the fame, not even Ryan's downfall. It was seeing my dream, my real dream, come alive. Final words. Revenge, people say, is about destruction, about making the other person suffer. But I learned something different. True revenge isn't about destroying your enemy, it's about building yourself back up, stronger than ever. And watching as the world finally sees the truth. Ryan Jacobs thought he could steal my future. Instead, he gave me the fire I needed to create something unstoppable. And now, when people talk about innovation, about apps that changed the game, they don't say his name, they say mine.